There is no despair in the world. Talk to Hashem for 1 hour every day. Every day of our life, yearn, pray, and make a practical effort to live in Eretz Israel. There's only one necessary path, and that's simplicity. Welcome to the Simple Life Breslov podcast. I'm Rebbe Nachman. Thank you for tuning in. This episode is in the merit and success of Chava Amuna bat Sarah Leah Nava bat Chava Amuna B'Tzalel Moshe ben Chava Amuna Malka Rivka bat Chava Amuna Aliyah Zipporah bat Chava Amuna bat Yechaya bat Chava Amuna Yosef Simcha ben Chava Amuna, and also for the protection of all of the IDF soldiers and for the protection and safe release of all the hostages, and for Klal Yisrael. Today is the 13th of Tammuz, Erev Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to you all. I want to talk about one of Rebbe Nachman's most famous and important teachings, AZAMRA. You can find this teaching in Likutey Moharan, lesson 282. There's also this wonderful book. It's a small book and it's double-sided. One side is titled Ayeh, which means where, and the other side is titled AZAMRA, I will sing. You can buy this on the Breslov Research Institute website. I'll put the link in the description. I think I got this book for maybe about $7-8, and I think it's one of the greatest investments that I could have ever made for my life. I will sing to my God with the little I have left. This is Psalms 146:2. And in but a little bit the sinner is not. You shall reflect upon his place, and he will not be there. Psalms 37:10. No, you must judge all people favorably, even in the case of a complete sinner. You must search until you find some modicum of good, some modicum of good by virtue of which he is not a sinner. By finding this small amount of good and judging him favorably, you really do elevate him to the scale of merit. You can then bring him to return to God. In the verse, and in but a little bit the sinner is not, the verse is telling us to judge everyone favorably. Even if you see that someone is a complete sinner, you must still hunt and search until you find some little bit of good in him. There, in the place where this little bit of good exists, Rebbe Nachman says, that person is not wicked. So I know that may seem very challenging for some of us, but Rebbe Nachman said, even in a complete sinner, there's some little bit of good in that person. I know some people are probably asking, like, okay, come on now, it's a complete sinner. And Rebbe Nachman said, though he may be wicked, is it really possible that even not a modicum of good exists in him anymore? Could it be that he never once carried out some mitzvah or did something good in his entire life? By finding a little bit of good in him, at which point he is not a sinner, and then judging him favorably, you really do elevate him from a position of guilt to one of merit. As a result, he will return to God. Now, I'm no rabbi. I'm just giving over the words of the great Tzaddik, Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. And so I would recommend, if you have some conflicting thoughts or questions about some of these things, or anything that you guys hear on this podcast, I would recommend going to your rabbi and asking some of these questions and sharing your hearts and go from there. I do believe that this is one of the most important lessons that we could ever learn. Why? Because one of the reasons that the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed was because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. During the times of the Beit HaMikdash, we hated each other for no reason. So one of the ways that we can fix or rectify this baseless hatred is to start learning how to find the good in other people. Actually, me and my wife have been talking about this a lot. When we are meeting people, in contact with people, in certain situations, something happens in our lives. And rather than being quick to judge that person, or get an attitude, or get mad at them, or whatever the case may be, my wife and I, we have literally been working on trying to put ourselves in their shoes and to assume that they had good intentions, or to find the good in that particular person. Maybe we had a conversation with someone and they said something that we didn't necessarily agree with, or maybe it came off as rude. So rather than getting mad at that person for saying what he said, maybe his intentions were good and maybe he didn't mean it that way. A lot of people have been telling us that One of the things that we have to really get used to is the straightforwardness in Israel. We've heard people say that Israelis are pretty upfront. So that's a perfect example. So my wife and I, we're going to be intentionally working on making sure that we don't take things personal. Maybe we're trying to get in line at a restaurant, which we heard, that's another thing. We heard that there's no lines. Customer service is quite different than America. And so rather than getting mad and getting upset, we find the good. We find the good in that person, find the good in that situation. Okay. You must also find this good point within yourself. It is a known principle that one must try to be happy always and keep far from depression. I was speaking with my Rabbi David Kalmus. He's an incredible human being. He's dedicated his life to sharing the teaching of Rebbe Nachman. He has an incredible organization called the Tzion Breslov Project. I will also be sure to put his information, his website, in the description as well. I was speaking with him a few days ago about a particular tough time in my life. And I was going through some different things. And he gave me a call. And one of the things that he said is, okay, you're going to have to really dig deep and find the good. AZAMRA. You're going to have to really dig deep and keep finding those good points in yourself every day. Because finding the good points is going to bring you to joy, to simcha. And this way it's going to make it easier for you to get through these different obstacles that you are currently experiencing. So I'm very grateful for that advice. It may be that when you start examining yourself, you may think you have nothing good in you at all. You see that you are full of sin, and the evil one wants to push you into depression and sadness as a result. Even so, you must not allow yourself to fall, not on any account. Instead, you should search until you find that little bit of good within yourself. For how could it be that you never did a single mitzvah or anything good in your entire life? Rebbe Nachman says some good point must be there. You have to search until you find some modicum of good in yourself to restore your inner vitality and attain happiness. So let me share this with you before we get out of here on how I personally implement this into my life. So during my heat bodedut, and this looks different each time, but in my heat bodedut, what I would do is take some time to just start finding the good points in myself, because there are times where some days are a little bit rough to get started. Maybe my morning was a little bit tougher. I'm going through some different things in my life. So sitting down talking to Hashem looks different every day. Sometimes it's very hard to open my mouth. When I have those days, I really try my best to start finding the good points in myself. I'll think about some good deeds. I'll think about a mitzvah. I'll think about something good in myself, and I will start to build on that. And it really helps me. And it helps me not to fall into guilt. It helps me not to fall into depression. Rebbe Nachman said that we should stay far away from depression, and that we should be happy always. It's a mitzvah gadola, a big mitzvah to be happy all the time. And one of the ways that we can start tapping into that joy is through this teaching, AZAMRA, finding the good points. So I hope this was helpful. Love you guys very much. I pray that you have a wonderful Shabbat. And I pray that this can be one more tool that we can put into our toolbox of connecting to Hashem, that we can start finding the good points in other people and finding the good points in ourselves. And with God's compassion, we can be worthy of drawing closer and closer to Hashem. Love you all. Shabbat Shalom.